And God said, Behold, I have given you every herb-bearing seed. To you it shall be for food. Genesis 1:29. Man did eat angels' food. He sent them meat to the full. Psalm 78:25. Everyday Manna with Lisa.
Hi everybody, and welcome to Everyday Manna. Today we are going to make a chicken and artichoke casserole. To go alongside that, we're going to have some shredded sweet potatoes that we're going to saute in a skillet, and then some wonderful cookies, oatmeal coconut cookies that could not be simpler to make. We're going to get started on our casserole because that needs to bake for about 30 minutes. Now this is a great use for some leftover chicken. Let me get my oven or my skillet preheating. I've got my oven preheated to 350 degrees. This is a good use for like leftover chicken, or if you just want to make this and you don't have leftover chicken, a rotisserie chicken makes a great thing to use in this recipe. Now I just have a couple of cups of chicken that I have just shredded into bite-sized pieces, and I'm going to put that in the bottom. You can also mix this all in a bowl if you want to. I'm going to cut these artichokes up, and I've got a couple of cans of plain artichokes, not the ones that are marinated. These are just plain quartered artichokes, but they're kind of big, and I've drained them. If you can find frozen artichokes, you can by all means use that. We're going to get these quartered. If you're using the frozen ones, you will need to cook them first. My store did not have any frozen artichokes, so I'm just using the just 2 cans of drained artichokes. Hearts. These are artichoke hearts. You could substitute asparagus or broccoli if you wanted to, but try the artichokes. They're very good. And I think that's an ingredient that a lot of people don't use. I'm not sure if they just really don't know how to or what. I'm not sure on that end. For our dressing that's going to go on top, I have a skillet here that I am going to add 1 can of cream of chicken soup. I'm just going to heat this here. The recipe calls for 2 cans, but I want to tell you something you can do sometimes. Maybe you just have 1 can of you could use cream of mushroom, you could use cream of chicken, you could use, cream of anything kind of soup. You could also, instead of another can of soup, add a can of creamed corn, and you're going to get another layer of flavor, and it's delicious. So we're going to add some garlic to this. Just a couple of cloves of minced garlic. We're going to stir that together. We're just heating this is all we're doing. Just heating that through for a minute. I'm also going to add a cup of mayonnaise because this is the sauce. Just stir that in there. I'm going to add some curry powder, just a mixture of curry. Now, in the store, you buy curry, of course, in the spice aisle, and you will probably see 2 or 3 different kinds of curry. One will just say curry powder, one will say Madras curry powder, and one might possibly say spicy curry powder. You can use any of them. I just typically buy the plain curry powder. And curry powder is just a mixture. It can contain a lot of different things, but typically it has turmeric, coriander, sometimes a little tiny bit of cinnamon and pepper. But it's really good. And turmeric, by the way, is something I think a lot of people don't use, but it's a wonderful spice to use. It adds a tremendous amount of flavor, a tremendous amount of color, but it's also an anti-inflammatory, so it's very good for you. Now I'm going to add the juice of 1 lemon. You want about a tablespoon or so. Use my little juicer. I love this thing because it juices all of it and it keeps the seeds contained. And did you know, by the way, that lemons, you'll get more juice out of a room temperature lemon than you will a cold lemon? I don't know if you knew that or not, but you surely will. Now, that's really all we need to do. We just want to heat that to combine it. That's really it. Put this over here. And then we will get our casserole assembled. Now, over top of our artichokes and chicken, I am going to add a little bit of shredded cheddar cheese. You could use any kind of cheese you wanted. I'm going to add a little bit of that. Then I'm going to pour our sauce over that. Just get that. Oh, it smells so good. That curry powder smells so good. Just smoothing that over top. Making sure it's all covered. And then now I am using just dried breadcrumbs, but if you have like some day-old bread that you want to cube, you can absolutely use that too. I am going to add a little bit of breadcrumbs, about a cup or so, cup and a half. And then I'm going to pour some melted butter over top of that. Just right like that. And then I'm actually going to top it with a little bit more shredded cheese, just a little bit, just to kind of get that topping, a little bit of coating. Now this will need to go into the oven at 350 degrees for about 30 minutes. I'm going to sprinkle the top of mine with a little bit of freshly cracked pepper. Now if you'll notice, I did not put any salt in there. That is because the soup and the cream corn have salt in them. So I don't want to add any more, but feel free, if you want to add a little bit more salt to yours, you can by all means do that. I really am just trying to cut back on the amount of sodium in my diet. So I don't add any, but feel free to do that if you want. I'm just going to pop this in the oven, clean up my mess, and when I come back, we are going to get started on our cookies. I'll be back in just a minute. Alrighty, now our casserole is in the oven baking, and you will need to preheat another oven or do these at separate times to 375 degrees. So I've got the casserole in one oven, and then this oven is at 375, and we're going to make some oatmeal coconut cookies, and they're very, very, very simple. Let me grab a couple of spoons here while I'm thinking about it. So these are just like a drop cookie. You will need a couple of spoons. So in here I have 2 sticks of butter that are room temperature, softened. You know, you can leave them out on the counter a couple of hours. We're going to beat that with some sugar, white sugar and brown sugar. I'm going to use my little hand mixer, but if you have a stand mixer, you could use that too, which, you know, I do use that sometimes, but I want to show you alternatives for those of you that might not have a stand mixer, because not everybody has one of those. I think they're great. I've had mine that I have at home. I got it as a wedding gift 22 years ago, almost 23 years ago, and it really is wonderful and still going strong. So we're going to just beat these until the butter is incorporated with the sugars. Takes a couple of minutes. This is the hardest part, is just beating all this together. Make sure you scrape down the sides to get it all in there. Then we're going to add a couple of eggs, one at a time. Beat all that in there. And it'll become like a creamy consistency. You can see it kind of coming together. And that's called creaming butter. If you ever read a recipe and it says cream the butter and sugars together, that's what it means. It turns into just a very creamy consistency. And in baking, for those of you that don't know this, and there's a scientific reasoning behind it, but in baking, sugar is always considered a wet ingredient. I have a little thing here that we all have these in our drawers. It really helps to stabilize the bowl while you're mixing. I have in here just a couple of cups of flour. I'm going to add some baking soda and some salt. I don't have a sifter, so I just use a whisk, because I like my tools to be multitaskers. I want them to do more than one thing. A sifter only does one thing. So we're going to sift that all together, and in this bowl I have some coconut, and in the bottom I have some oats. Now these are not the quick or the little instant 1 minute. These are the quick cook that take like 5 minutes. Because they're whole, you can see that they are flakes. The instant is chopped up much finer, and you can use either one, but I like the consistency of the old-fashioned oats better. We're just going to mix that together. I also have a couple of cups of just cornflakes, just plain old cornflakes cereal, and I'm going to just use my little meat mallet to kind of crumble those together. Great job for kids, by the way. I'm going to put those into my flour mixture. I also have about half a cup of walnuts, and I'm going to do the same thing. Just going to take a little meat mallet and kind of chop them up a little finer. You could use almonds or pecans, whatever you wanted, macadamia nuts, peanuts, any kind of nut would work, be fine. Also going to just put that in there. Get all my ingredients together. Then I'm going to put that in there, the flour mixture, and stir that together. Whoop. I'm a messy cook. If you've watched this program before, you know that. We're just going to stir all this together. Then we're going to add in our coconut and the oats. And this is a thick batter, but if you work it, it will come together. You can. It's really easy in a stand mixer. If you want to take your hand mixer on low, you can also do that, and it just really kind of brings it all together into a dough. It's a thick dough. I hit my off button. If you want to use your mixer to kind of help you with it, that's good. You can do that. It's very thick. Just turn your bowl, and then you will need to finish it by hand. You will need to get the batter out of the beaters, just lightly. Might need to help because it's very thick with your spoon. Got a little bit too big of a spatula here for this job, but it works. Just work at it, you'll get it. And set this to the side and take your spatula and work it in. And really all you want to do is get it to where you do not see any more flour, any more dry flour. I mean, it's okay if it's on the edges of the bowls a little bit, but in your mixture, you don't want to see the flour. So you will need to make sure you get to the bottom and turn that in, because that will, all right, I want you to see here if you can get a shot down in there. You see how there's some dry flour still down in there? You want to make sure you work that in to the dough, and I think we're good there. Now, I have 2 baking trays that I have lined with non-stick aluminum foil. You could also use parchment paper. 2 spoons, and you want to take your dough and drop it on your tray by the spoonsful, couple of inches apart, 375 degrees for about 14 minutes or so until they're, you know, set and cooked through. I'll show you that at the end. These are really good, and you could add in, you know, anything you want. If you wanted to add in some chocolate chips, you could. There's an ingredient at your grocery store now that is powdered peanut butter. You could even add in some powdered peanut butter if you wanted to add a little bit of peanut butter flavoring. It's really good. I use that in quite a few different recipes that I'm working on developing. It's really good. And that's all there is to it. We're just going to drop this by the spoonsful onto our baking tray, and I'm going to put them in the oven for about 14 minutes. And when I come back, we are going to make some shredded sweet potatoes to go alongside our casserole. I'll be back in just a minute. Alrighty, now let's get started on our sweet potatoes. I have a skillet here that I am melting some butter in, and I have peeled 3 yellow sweet potatoes, and I'm going to use a food processor, but if you want to, you can use a hand grater because we are going to grate these. Sweet potatoes are hard, so I'm cutting them in half, and then we're going to shred them in our food processor on the large holes. Okay. So much easier. Okay. And the little bits that are on top, you can, you know, sometimes when you use a food processor, you do get these bits that don't go through. And you can, by all means, just, that one may fit in their hole. Let's see. No, need to cut him. I probably got him stuck now. If you ever do that, what you got to do is take it off, push it back out there. So these are kind of big, so I'm going to cut them in half. If they're long, I'm going to cut them in half and then half again into quarters. Sweet potatoes are extremely good for you. This button's hard to push. Come on, button. Just boom, 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 and you're done. You can go ahead and put some of these in there. And we'll finish the others in just a second. Now we're getting just shreds of sweet potato. See, we got little shreds there, which is what we want. So let's finish up the rest of these. I don't know if you know this on your food processor, but most of the time your slicing disc will have one side bigger and one side smaller, and whichever, you know, size you're wanting to shred is what you put facing upward. Come on, you, ooh, did I put that in there the wrong way? I believe I did. It goes that way. All right. Now let's, this button, for whatever reason, is just not wanting to cooperate with me today. I'm going to leave it running. Let's put these back in and see if we can't shred some more. All righty. We'll just take these and shred those by hand a little bit, chop them up. Add the rest of your sweet potatoes. Now I've got 3 sweet potatoes here. And I'm going to saute those in that butter just to kind of coat them. I've got a little bit of salt, a little bit of cinnamon, and I'm going to add some freshly grated nutmeg, about 1/4 of a teaspoon of freshly grated nutmeg. I like fresh grated nutmeg. I don't like pre-ground nutmeg. This is a little nutmeg grinder, but if you don't have one of these, you can use the fine side of your box grater or a microplane. Either one will work. This could not be simpler. You just stir those. Then I'm going to add a little bit of ginger ale. This is about 3/4 of a cup of ginger ale. You could use Sprite if you wanted to. You could use chicken broth if you wanted to. I just want to add another layer of flavor to them. And I'm going to coat them, and I'm just going to let them simmer for about 5 minutes or so until they're soft. The reason I'm doing them so short is see how thin these are? If you don't want to shred them, you can cut them by hand into discs, into rounds. If you want to do it that way, it's fine. And I'm just going to take these little bits that did not go through the tube, and I'm just going to finely slice them because you don't want to waste them. Practice your cutting skills here. Now, they won't be as finely shredded as those, but that's okay. They're still good. Remember, we've got our casserole in the oven, the chicken and artichoke casserole. Our cookies, the first batch is out. That makes about 3 trays of cookies, that recipe does. Of course, that depends on how big your spoon droppings are there. Mine were about probably a tablespoon or a tablespoon and a half. Let's just add these in there. And we're just going to let that simmer for about 5 minutes or so until those sweet potatoes are softened. Alrighty, now our casserole is done. This is our chicken and artichoke heart casserole that we made the sauce with the cream of chicken and a can of cream of corn, or you could use 2 cans of cream of chicken or cream of mushroom, cream of celery, cream of anything kind of soup that we mixed in with a little bit of curry powder, and it's just so very, very good. That came out of the oven. That needs to sit for about 10 or 15 minutes before you dive into it. And here are our wonderful cookies. When you get them out of the oven, put the sheet tray on like a cooling rack for about 5 minutes, and then slide the cookies off on the foil and let them finish cooling. And here's what they look like when they are done. And I'll show you the inside. They are just chewy and delicious, and oh, so, so, so good. So good. It's like, Those are wonderful. You could add macadamia nuts into that. You could put some chocolate chips in it. You can put anything you want. Our sweet potatoes literally only take 5 minutes, 10 minutes at the most, because they're cut so fine. I like to take the lid off like the last minute or so and let the liquids kind of evaporate a little bit and therefore concentrate the flavors. Just put that over into your serving dish. If you've got a little chopped parsley, you could add some chopped parsley on top. But there you go. A wonderful, easy meal that you can make any night of the week. You know, in under an hour, you can have everything from start to finish, provided your chicken is already cooked. So we've got our delicious artichoke and chicken casserole. We've got our shredded sweet potatoes that we cooked in a little bit of ginger ale. You could also add in any kind of a green vegetable that you wanted. Some chopped broccoli would be good in that. Some sugar snap peas or snow peas would be good in that, or even some frozen green peas, English peas, stirred into your sweet potatoes would be wonderful. If you wanted to turn that into the traditional kind of casserole, you could put that in a baking dish, top it with the marshmallows, maybe some chopped pecans, and put that in the oven. And then our delicious oatmeal coconut cookies, drop cookies. All these recipes are simple and easy to do. Thank you for joining with me, and I will see you next time on Everyday Manna.
Thank you for watching Everyday Manna with Lisa. This program is made possible by viewers like you. Your support is continually needed to keep Christian programming on the air. Please send your best financial gift to Living Faith Television in care of Everyday Manna, P.O. Box 1867, Abingdon, Virginia 24212.